Hello and welcome. You're watching Destination Draft Day, your one and only stop for all things NFL draft, NFL, college football, everything in between. But first and foremost, happy Friday to everyone. And Nick Durst is here again. Sorry about us missing last Monday, just a little bit of chaos with our schedules, mostly on my end. So apologies for that for everyone who was just lonely from 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 Eastern on Monday, but we're here now, and Rochman's Rookies of the Week will make an appearance. But Nick, how are you doing on this Friday?
That's what everyone wanted to hear. I've been waiting so long for that segment to come back. It is back. I'm doing well, Michael. I don't know if I'm doing as well as Oklahoma, who won 76-0. And it's kind of like making a statement out there. But listen, it was a crazy weekend. We had the first NFL slate of games. But college football, Michael, is just really insane so far through the first, 2 official weeks. Right here on the show last Friday, you said Ohio State, they're going to get tripped up this year, and they do. And Oregon makes a statement. So overall this year, Pac-12 trying to make a edict to the College Football Playoff Committee that we are back and we are good. Your thoughts on that game? Is it more so that, hey, Oregon was the better team, they won that game, or was it Ohio State should have won this one? They made some mistakes and it got away from them.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I really do think that Oregon deserved the victory. They obviously played better all game, but I don't think this is necessarily a huge testament to Oregon being this elite slept-on team. I think Oregon's solid. I think they're going to be in that 10 to 15 range when the season comes to an end, maybe even a little bit higher now that they got this victory against Ohio State. But I think Ohio State's been overrated from the jump, and I've kind of been adamant of that on this show. I thought Maryland was going to be the team that really kind of set the world on notice and upset Ohio State, but Oregon was the one that got to them first, and they, deserve all the credit in the world. That's still a huge victory for the Oregon Ducks and for the Pac-12. But I just don't think this is as big a win as a lot of people will assume. And over the course of the season, we'll kind of see Ohio State probably slip up. And maybe this loss is an eye-opener for the Buckeyes, and they're able to bounce back, and they're able to kind of get things going. But right now, the team we're seeing, the secondary, the defense overall, is just not the standard of Ohio State football. And it's why, for most of the season after week one, I kind of did not see them as a legitimate contender. And it's why I've been so adamant that I think really a lot of these playoff teams are going to come from the SEC. But that's another headline that happened with Haynes King breaking his ankle. The Texas A&M Aggies, your favorite from the SEC, is now sitting in hot water. They struggled with Colorado, and it's not like Colorado's this awful team, but Texas A&M probably would have handled them if healthy. Now, without a QB really situated to start and lead them, there's some question marks surrounding the Aggies.
Yeah, Michael, they barely skated by there. A 10-7 win over Colorado. Even if they do well and they have one loss, the committee is going to come back and say, well, you only beat Colorado by 3 points. So not great for Texas A&M, not great for my pick. Your pick, is still looking okay, but it's just like, there's a lot of craziness going on here. Georgia, they're just kicking ass right now. They win again 56-7 over UAB. The big boys in the SEC, they just dominated this week. Auburn wins 62, zip. Alabama wins 48-14. So the SEC looking great again. The teams we thought were going to be contending outside of the SEC. Obviously, Clemson lost the week before. They bounced back 49-3 over SC State. Wisconsin, who we both think is a pretty solid team in the Big Ten, they win 34-7. But sticking with the SEC, Mississippi, they win 54-17. Arkansas beats Texas. Texas is done, Michael. I think they should probably start thinking about who's going to be their next head coach, because it's only going to get worse from here under Sarkisian. I hated the hire at the time. If they're really going to be able to get in the SEC next year, I tell you right now, they will not win they're not going to win. They're not going to be in the national title picture for the rest of this decade, at least, if they continue to ride it out with Sarkisian. What a disgrace for the Longhorn fans. Just tough for them. Other than that, Michigan, they showed up big, 31-10. I think maybe they have a legit chance this year to win the Big Ten, perhaps. They got a tough game next week against Rutgers. Rutgers is showing they're legit with that defense, stopping Syracuse. Big Ten's up for grabs. We both know it. We'll see where that takes us. But UNC bounced back with a win. Miami bounced back with a win, barely beating App State. And then the big games and the big stuff that came out of the weekend was, we talked about the big game. Iowa beats Iowa State. Plenty of controversy there in the Battle of Iowa. And then BYU, they beat Utah. Utah is very overhyped, I think, in the Pac-12. I was kind of buying into the hype. They lose. Arizona State, they win big. There was a lot of noise about them coming into the season, but off the field issues. But I always liked them. I like Herm. I like the coaching staff. Antonio Pierce there with defense. And the big game, of course, was USC getting destroyed by Stanford. You were higher on USC than I was. Helton gets fired. Rumors all over the place about, we'll get Urban Meyer, blah, blah, blah. I think maybe they'll end up with Bob Stoops if they want to move quickly here just because he's available. I don't understand why you fire the guy quickly. Not a great time to be looking to hire a coach, September 15th. Because people are not going to leave their programs 2 weeks into the season. But your thoughts there?
I was shocked that Helton was fired so quickly in this season. I really thought that he was going to kind of be the guy that maybe fell on the sword over the duration of the season. But I think the issue for USC is they feel like they have a roster that is ready to contend right now, and they felt like Clay Helton just wasn't getting the job done. I don't know if Coach Williams is going to keep the job. Obviously he's stepping in as interim, but I think the opportunity there for USC is wide open. I wouldn't be shocked if Urban Meyer ends up being their head coach next year. I didn't like the hire from the start for the Jaguars. I kind of said that on here. I talked about how, if it weren't for Trevor Lawrence being the guy that they got at QB, I would have disliked their offseason a lot more. And it's just, I don't know. It just seems like there's a few dominoes that are going to keep falling. And maybe Urban, pulls like a similar to Nick Saban situation where, maybe it's not he was just this awful coach, but he just wasn't feeling it in the NFL. And he decides to head back to the college ranks. And USC is probably one of the more enticing jobs if he is going to take that route. But, realistic opportunities. Let's say that Urban Meyer sticks with the Jaguars. Chaos doesn't happen. There's been rumors about James Franklin. There's been rumors about Eric Bieniemy going down to college football and being their head coach. There's been rumors of Bob Stoops, guys like that. I think there's plenty of opportunity. And I think maybe a guy like Brian Harsin would be quite interesting there at USC. Just took the job at Auburn, so he may want to stick around there. But he has the success over out west, and that's something that is kind of big for anyone that's going to take over this position. I
think that I saw rumors like, they have Lane Kiffin on the short list. They're going to bring Lane Kiffin back. They fired the guy. It doesn't make sense. If I had to really legitimately say, if you asked Michael, you said, Nick, who do you think is going to be the head coach of USC? I am going to go with Bill O'Brien. I think we know he can coach at the college level. There's no chance he's going to be the offensive coordinator again next year for Alabama. He's at that role specifically to be a head coach next year. And he's got to get a Power 5 job, no doubt about it. He's not going to have to go like Lane Kiffin did to totally rejuvenate himself and take a lesser job, but then to get back to the Power 5. That's not going to happen. I think Bill O'Brien is someone they will consider, and they probably should consider if you're looking at legitimate candidates there who have a track record and can probably do well in recruiting.
Yeah, I think Bill O'Brien's a legitimate option as well. Me and you talked about him potentially for this Texas job. And we said that, it'd be weird because a lot of Houston Texans fans probably wouldn't love it. But I mean, he showed success at the college football level. I think with his experience now at Alabama, that's huge for him to kind of learn the insider trading of this Nick Saban success. And maybe it leads to him being the USC head coach. But I think right now, it's September. So there's plenty of time for them to figure it out. There's plenty of time not to rush it. And there's plenty of time for Coach Williams to maybe make an argument to where he could really get this job. USC, last time they fired a coach, had Ed Orgeron as their interim coach, and he shined. He looked great. And then they decided to hire someone else, and Orgeron went on to LSU and won a championship. So, I mean, yeah, the rumors and everything are fun, but give Williams a fair shot because you may have something there.
Yeah, I think they should let him play out the season. I don't think to me, I never understood why you would make a coaching hire in October, early November, obviously for recruiting wise, but especially when it's like you come in, the player's already there. You know the guy that came in is not going to coach the rest of the season. So you got to look at head coach. You got old players who are like, I don't even want to play hard. Maybe I want to just opt out now, focus on the draft because I don't know what the new regime wants from me. So it's dicey. But yeah, I think I'm agreeing with you. USC should just play out the rest of the season, get into November at least before you're making these drastic changes as far as the future of the team goes.
Absolutely. And, there's some big games this week happening in college football that'll continue on this trend for games that you need to watch if you are a college football or NFL draft fan. We're going to talk about them right here with some players to watch from an NFL draft perspective. So let's get into it right away. Purdue versus Notre Dame. Nick is high on the Fighting Irish, but they had a little bit of a hiccup last week.
They barely squeaked by, Michael.
Yeah. And this week, Purdue is not a team to be slept on. I know they have had their moments of downplay in the Big Ten, but I think this year they're looking pretty strong. And player to watch in this game is Jack Plummer, the quarterback for Purdue. Look, they got David Bell, who's obviously a stud. This guy is well known. But Jack Plummer, this is a great test for him to really prove himself against a very strong defense. Can Jack Plummer come in? Can he potentially get the upset? Can he show himself off as a great QB? Can he keep the calmness that he's kind of had so far as the Purdue quarterback? Now going against a little bit harder competition, I think it's safe to say Notre Dame has a little bit better defense than the UConn Huskies. So we'll see what Jack Plummer can do. And I'm really expecting some big things. I think Purdue could really take an upset here against Notre Dame and really surprise college football. Another player to watch is Kyron Williams, the running back for Notre Dame. Look, Jack Cohn is a very solid quarterback. They have pieces in the passing game like Michael Mayer. But Kyron Williams is the identity of this offense. If he gets going, if he can make plays, then Notre Dame is going to be able to escape this game with a victory. Kyron Williams is an absolute stud, probably one of the more well-rounded backs in this class. Great playmaking ability, can burst into the second level. A little undersized, so if you're looking for someone a little bigger, then maybe you won't love Kyron, but man, he makes plays. I'm a guy who loves the little bit bigger running backs, but Kyron Williams catches my eye, and I'm a huge fan. George Karlaftis is the last guy. Look, this is someone that I think is a top 5 pick. And, I think this is just a nice opportunity for him to really showcase that. There's a lot of defensive line people that you could watch in this game. Karlaftis for Purdue, Foskey for Notre Dame. There's plenty even more that I could talk about. But Karlaftis, I think in this game is going to have a big opportunity. A lot of people want to see more production, more stacks happening in this game. And he hasn't had one so far this season, but that doesn't diminish the fact that he is an absolute stud. And I think this game, it's a great opportunity for him to really showcase himself as a dominant player in this class and kind of solidify himself up at the top in what is a very crowded edge rusher room with, pieces like Kayvon Thibodeau, who's more of a outside linebacker, edge rusher, defensive end, whereas Karlaftis and DeMarvin Leal are just guys that are kind of defensive tackle, defensive end type guys. So Karlaftis, great pass rusher. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do in this game to really showcase and set himself as a top guy in this class. Next game to keep an eye on is Alabama versus Florida. My expectation is Alabama is going to continue to dominate their schedule, but Florida is going to be a tough test. players to watch in this game, John Mechie is obviously the star receiver for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think this is a great opportunity for him to go against Kaiir Elam, who is one of the more highly regarded corners in this class compared to a lot of people. And that is something that is going to be watched by many scouts. And there's prospects all over the field for both teams, but Mechie versus Elam, I think, is going to be a very strong indication of just where the talent really lies in this type of class, in this game, which one's better. And I think Mechie is going to really surprise some people. He's a very aggressive wide receiver, and I think that kind of plays against Elam. I think Elam has great length, but I think with the physicality, with the man mirroring, he still needs some work. And I think Mechie is going to expose that a little bit, and we'll see what happens. The next player to watch, though, in this game, the third and final one, is Brenton Cox Jr., a very talented edge rusher, going to be going against a very talented Alabama offensive line. Can he create some chaos? Can he get some dominant plays that really make him show or shine in this game? Brenton Cox is someone that I think is going to have a great combine and probably be in that late first-round discussion when his time comes for the NFL draft. But I'm really excited to see what he can do in a game like this to really showcase and put himself up in that area. And the final game to keep an eye on, Auburn versus Penn State. Some players to watch in this one, I think Jahan Dotson versus Roger McCreary is similar to Mechie versus Elam, probably a little bit lower regarded receivers and corners. McCreary, probably a day 3 guy. Dotson, slot receiver, so he could be limited to a second round, third round, fourth round type pick. But both guys, I think, are going to really have a great opportunity to showcase what they can do. And I think this is going to be a really fun matchup. Penn State doesn't have the greatest passing attack in terms of QB play. Clifford, not really that guy, in my opinion. But I do think that this is going to be a great matchup to keep an eye on. And I assume Dotson's going to be the one getting covered by McCreary. It could be Pritchett on Dotson possibly, but I think McCreary and Dotson matching up makes the most sense to me. And then the last player to watch, Arnold Ebiketie, is a defensive end for the Penn State Nittany Lions, a very solid transfer from Temple, off to a very strong start for Penn State. I think he could continue that and really find himself as a highly regarded draft prospect, someone that goes in that round 3, round 5 range.
Michael, a lot of talented guys here. Penn State, I really think they have a very legitimate chance to win the Big Ten this season. So this is a huge game for them. For Florida, Alabama, I'm feeling an upset, Michael. I think Florida has a good chance to win this one based on everything we've seen, the way the college football season's gone so far. This game is in Florida, so I think it'll be a close one, but I think there's a good chance Florida kind of squeaks that out. Notre Dame, they're in trouble. They haven't really shown that they're going to be easily winning any games here. It's going to be a close one here against Purdue. But these are definitely 3 good games. A game that I think is crazy to say, but a week 3 must win. Arizona State versus BYU. The loser has no shot to play in a New Year's Day game. So your thoughts there? 2 teams here who are on the brink of, the loser of this game is probably out of the top 25. But BYU taking on is number 23. They're playing Arizona State, number 19 team. BYU is the home team. 10-15 games. So I know you'll be watching that one. Your thoughts there on that matchup and the implications for those teams moving forward here if they lose this game?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the games I was going to talk about after, just because how impressive both teams have been so far. BYU obviously getting the upset over Utah, and then Arizona State has really kind of solidified themselves as one of the better teams in college football. Both top 25 teams, which maybe you wouldn't expect at the beginning of the season when this game was first scheduled. But both teams have made it here, and now they're going to play in what should be a very interesting game. Both teams have really talented running backs, Rachaad White and Tyler Algier for BYU. Rachaad White for Arizona State, Tyler Algier for BYU. I think this is going to be a very impressive game for both sides, and I think it's crucial that each team wins. I'm going to go with Arizona State. I think Jaden Daniels is going to kind of elevate them above and really get them into, that 3-0, moving on to the Pac-12 type of focus on their schedule. But I don't know. It's going to be a tight one. BYU, I know the highlight of last season was Zach Wilson, but they were filled with talent on this roster, and we're seeing that this year. Going to be a great game, but yeah, I'm taking the Sun Devils.
Absolutely there. Oregon, they are going to win by 50 plus playing Stony Brook this week, so that's going to help their chances there. They're already ranked number 4. Anybody slips up, they'll be moving up, that's for sure. But yeah, it's another good slate here this weekend of games, and should be some upsets, hopefully. But I'm also intrigued by Oklahoma versus Nebraska. 2 good teams. Nebraska 2-1. Rich rivalry there and goes back quite some time. Anybody you're keeping an eye on in this game from the Nebraska side of things?
Yeah, I think the big focus for Nebraska, for me, is someone that I've talked about a little bit as we kind of led into the season, going over each position. And the one guy that I was talking about consistently was, sorry, I'm trying to think of the name. I keep saying either Cam Thomas, but it's Cam Taylor Britt, the corner out of Nebraska. I think this is a huge game for him. He has to go against the Sooners wide receiver group, and whether he's on Hazelwood, whether he's on Mims, he's got to have a strong game. And I know that Oklahoma's going to get going in the passing game, and that can be, demoralizing for a corner, especially if the rest of the secondary maybe isn't stepping up as they should. But I think Cam Taylor Britt has a huge opportunity to go against an elite talent and really showcase just what he can do as a corner and really establish himself as one of the better mid-round options in this class. And, I say mid-round, but who knows, some great performances, and someone who I think is a mid-round guy could very easily fly up boards across the country in terms of just how they're viewed as a draft prospect. And real quick, just some other games I think deserve plenty of attention this week. In Virginia Cavaliers versus North Carolina. Obviously, North Carolina struggled against Virginia Tech. Now they go against the Virginia Cavaliers in what should be a very interesting game. I think North Carolina is going to win that one, but I think there is plenty of potential for another slippage by the Tar Heels. Tulane versus Ole Miss. We saw what Tulane was able to do against Oklahoma. Ole Miss, Rattler and Corral have some similar issues in terms of trying to fit the ball in windows that aren't there and making turnovers. If Tulane can capitalize on that and create some turnovers, they could pull off the upset and get what they missed out on just by a few inches against Oklahoma. They could actually get that upset against Ole Miss. I think this is really a great opportunity for Corral to showcase himself against a strong defense. But Tulane has some very talented players on their roster. And, Michael Pratt is a guy that I'll be talking about all year next year for the QB class. But I think this is a huge game for both teams and really a strong opportunity for either one to establish themselves as one of the better teams in college football. And then Fresno State versus UCLA, I think, is going to be an interesting one as well. Fresno State lost by just 7 points to the Oregon Ducks that just beat Ohio State. Jake Haener is a very talented passer. The Bulldogs got a shot in this one. And, you and me are both very high on UCLA, and we think that they're going to win the Pac-12. I don't know if your mind's changed after Oregon beat Ohio State, but I just think that, there's still a chance that UCLA could have their slip-up game. I think that happens for a lot of these Pac-12 teams where they kind of have control and then they slip in, make it close, and then have to win it in the championship or whatever. But Fresno State's going to present a nice challenge, and I think that's what's been most exciting about UCLA this year. They had LSU, and then they go on their bye week, but now they get Fresno State, which is another nice challenge to sort of get this ball rolling. And if they can win against Fresno State, then I think that's huge for them. Obviously, it's not going to get easier with games against Stanford, games against Arizona State after that. But I think this is a great opportunity for UCLA to really continue to establish itself as one of the top teams in the Pac-12, if not the country.
Yeah, UCLA needs to win and keep it rolling here as they head into bigger conference play. Now, everybody here on this list, Michael, they all have one goal in mind. That's not to make it to the NFL. It's to make it to Rochman's Rookies of the Week. And we had some good performances, that's for sure, in week 1 of the NFL season.
Absolutely. So let's pull it up right now. And one guy that I got to go with, the face of the franchise I root for, Mac Jones, with a very impressive performance, handled pressure extremely well. I think that was one thing that I expected him to struggle with early, because a lot of these QBs that maybe aren't as mobile, they aren't able to get around and, create these plays, and it causes them to maybe limit themselves because they aren't reading the field as well. Mac Jones did a very solid job. 23 for 39, 281 yards, and a touchdown in his game against the Dolphins, one of the better defenses in the NFL. Very promising start, arguably the best start for the rookie QBs of this class. I think Mac Jones gets it. And, I'm very excited for what Mac can do.
I don't know, Michael. I think you should. I know he also lost, but I think Zach Wilson needs to be on here. This guy took an absolute beating. I mean, what was he, sacked 6 times, knocked down 10 times? I was very impressed watching Zach Wilson. I think Jets fans, they finally have their quarterback here. But if the offensive line and the coaching staff don't kill this guy, that's going to be the key. But he looked very impressive to me, Zach Wilson. I think at some point we'll see him on this list.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think his first half kind of kept him off, but that second half he looked very good. Started to get comfortable. Maybe not super comfortable with that O-line, but things got better, and I expect Zach Wilson to have a pretty good rookie year, probably a pretty good career. But right now, the meter leans Mac. Next player on this Rookies of the Week list, Elijah Mitchell, 19 carries, 104 yards, and 1 touchdown. Probably one of the more notable rookie performances, because a lot of people expected this to be Trey Sermon. Heading into the week, there was rumors of Trey Sermon getting first-round snaps. There was hype all offseason about
everyone should have listened to you at the draft. Trey Sermon is not as good as you think he is. He's just a product of Ohio State.
Yeah, and I think Sermon's going to have a performance or two where he ends up on this list, just because that's Shanahan. He'll have like 150 yards one week and then get like 3 carries the next. But right now, Elijah Mitchell looks like the guy in that backfield, and that's very impressive for him. Looked fantastic for the 49ers, and I'm really excited to see what they do with this rookie running back duo and with this now open running back room. Raheem Mostert obviously out for the season, hoping him a speedy recovery and a healthy one as well. Next rookie on the list, Jamar Chase gets the lean. All of these rookie wide receivers look great this week, but Jamar Chase, 5 receptions, 101 yards, 1 touchdown, and really the Bengals were struggling until they started to go Chase's direction. And Chase really kind of put this team on his back. Obviously, he's just a receiver. He's got to get a good pass, everything. But once he was kind of depended on as the main target, the Bengals offense really started to open up. And I think that's huge for them. If Jamar Chase can be the superstar and really kind of continue to build on this week, then it's going to be a great career for Jamar Chase. It's going to be an exciting offense for the Bengals, and I'm excited to see what happens with them. The next rookie of the week is Rashawn Slater. 0 pressure, 0 sacks, a fantastic performance against a dominant defensive line. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, neither of them were answering on Rashawn Slater. Slater was someone that I was kind of lower on whenever it came to my evaluation of him as a tackle in this class. And, he's making me eat grass. He's making me look like a fool because he just shut down 2 very strong defensive ends in this class. And I think he's going to be in for a very good season. And I'm happy for Justin Herbert, because he definitely needs all the help he can get after last year's debacle on the offensive line. And our last rookie of the week, Evan McPherson, 2 for 2, 53-yard field goal for his long for the day, and made a game winner to give the Bengals the win and partial upset over the Vikings. Vikings, a team that me and Nick, we both kind of like them heading in. And I don't know if maybe it's just the locker room chaos or what, but they just didn't look the same as what our expectations were. Still, great game for McPherson, 9 points in his debut as a kicker. And he looks the part. He looks like he could really be the long-term kicker here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, great performance. Very Graham Gano-like, who is by far the best kicker in the league right now. Cannot miss. But yeah, great. Always great to see a kicker on here. Also, I just want to talk about this real quick. It was so bizarre in the the Jets game. The punter went out right away, and the kicker just came in and did a phenomenal job punting the ball all over the place. I wonder, is that something where colleges, at some point might say, I don't want to waste a spot here on two players. Let me just have my kicker punt. And maybe in the future, that's a way you're going to see things in the NFL. But it's also very risky if you go that strategy. If you have the one kicker guy on the roster, he gets hurt, then you're like, all right, what do you do? Unless you got Chad Ochocinco who can kick field goals for you. What did you think about that kind of wackiness? And I think some colleges, it's interesting because in high school these guys are not just punting or not just kicking; they are doing both, and then they kind of specialize it off in college. But your thoughts on special teams there?
Yeah, I thought it was something that I've kind of thought of for a little bit, where I think that could very well be the case, especially in the NFL. That extra roster spot is huge. So having someone who can handle both is, it's a huge luxury. But like you said, it also comes with the risk of, am I getting someone that can still make a 57-yard field goal for me, but also pin them back within their 10? So it's a tough task, and whoever's able to do it, great. But at the same time, I understand why we haven't necessarily seen it take over the NFL. I think, though, it is something that we could very easily see kind of evolutionize the special teams in the NFL, where someone's doing both, and then the expectation starts to become that.
Right. All right. Now on to week one. So we'll briefly touch on some games because we got to get to the upcoming games here. I guess we'll start with last night, which was an ugly game to say the least. There, Washington football team, they missed the field goal at the end, but wait, the center, he jumped in the neutral zone. Not at the center, the defensive tackle right over center, and Washington kicks the field goal to win. Heineke looked really good. I don't think Fitzpatrick getting his job back. I think Heineke is going to be in there for most of the season. We shall see. Overall, Washington football team has not looked good the first 2 weeks. Giants are an absolute disaster. Undisciplined, bland. Barkley breaks off some big runs. They don't go to him for, another 4 or 5 drives. But listen, Washington football team won the game, but the Giants, I think, more so lost this game. Daniel Jones actually probably played his best game of his career. He has that crazy run for a touchdown, which gets brought back for a holding call there on the wide receiver, which was iffy. But nonetheless, that happened. I think I saw that this particular crew had 23 flags thrown week one, and now 20 flags here on Thursday night. So they like to call the penalties. And then Darius Slayton flat out dropped the game-winning touchdown pass there. But good for the Washington football team. They hang tough there. Heineke had an incredible drive where it took him 2 passes to go 76 yards in 2 plays, and Washington scores. Giants just let the Washington football team hang around too long, and ultimately, what always happens in that case is the team who's hanging around, they're going to get the ball last, and they win the game.
Yeah, little inside info, but this was a painful game for me to watch because I am a Saquon Barkley and Antonio Gibson fantasy owner. So just abysmal to watch for me, and it was just painful to see, J.D. McKissick get these huge touchdown yards on, goal line touchdown carry, and then these huge receiving yards, and to watch Daniel Jones take these huge carries all the way to the end zone, just stressful. But aside from that, I think this is kind of an interesting game because we don't really know how good either of these teams are. Washington obviously competed with the Chargers, who we think is going to be pretty good. Giants 0-2 right now, struggled against Denver, who we think is going to be pretty good. But both those games, these are teams that they played teams that are, assumed good, but we don't really know. And they're playing now against each other, and we don't really know how good either team is. I think we could look at this game and say, look, Washington won, but both teams were kind of lower in terms of their NFL standing. I'm not huge on the Giants. interior still didn't impress me. Nick Gates now injured as well. I think hurts them long term.
Yes.
The run blocking is an issue. I don't trust Daniel Jones to continue playing as well as he kind of did. I think there's still going to be a lot of games.
This is what you got to know. This is what you really need to know about Jones. Other than the fact that he has like 40 turnovers since he leads the league in turnovers, he has 8 career wins, and 4 of them were against the Washington football team. So he's really not doing much against other teams. Again, he played well last night, but how you're gonna see him have a clean 0 in the turnover column that often? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of concern for the Giants this season, and the defense was kind of their identity last season, and they weren't phenomenal last night. They still had a lot of issues that I think need to be fixed up. So I'm curious about the Giants. I think both teams last night probably are going to struggle. I could see the Giants being a team that in the overall draft order is in that like bottom 8, possibly even lower.
I mean, when you start 0-2, you start 0-2 for 7 straight years. I mean, there's a problem there. And maybe it's the general manager who's been in charge all those years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, whether they pick there or not, who knows? You and me have kind of been open to the idea of Aaron Rodgers landing in New York whenever it's said and done. I think that could very well happen. But we'll see what happens. But yeah,
really, if you're the Giants, right? I think we both agree they're going to be a bottom 10 team. They also have the Bears pick, and they're going to be a bottom 10 team. So you have 2 top 10 picks. Are you going to really draft a quarterback, or are you going to try to trade for Russell Wilson? Because I don't care, where Aaron Rodgers wants to go, where Russell Wilson wants to play. If you are saying to a team, I'm going to give you 2 top 10 picks in this draft, that offer can't be beaten across the league. It's not going to be beaten.
Yeah, I think this is going to be probably the Giants as the highest bidder for whatever QB they choose to pursue, whether that's Russell Wilson if things do kind of shake up in Seattle and he becomes available. Aaron Rodgers, who seems, very openly available, and assuming they don't turn it around and win a Super Bowl, I think it's very.
I think if they won the Super Bowl, then he's out of there. That was my preseason.
You think he's out of there? I feel like their GM would have to resign if he won a Super Bowl.
I think Aaron Rodgers would say, "I'm out of here. I'm not coming back."
Probably.
Now, let's talk about that game because
Watson as well, which is
Watson
going to be an interesting situation. But yeah, I mean the opportunity is there, and the Giants, they may not want to go back to the draft pool for a QB, especially in a class like this where it's very deep with options. There's plenty of guys, probably like 10 that you could justify saying right now, like, okay, they could potentially be a first-round pick at the end of the year.
But the thing is, if the Giants scenario, if they pick another QB, all right, you're now looking 3 years down the road. With the team they had last year, if you put Aaron Rodgers on their team with that defense, they're a playoff team. So it's kind of going to be, it's a win-now move. I would say if Gettleman is still somehow the general manager, he's going to either say, I'm all in on Daniel Jones, or he's going to trade for a quarterback.
Yeah.
He's not going to draft another quarterback. But you listen, kudos to you. You were all over Jameis Winston. You said this guy's ready to go. You like the Saints. The Saints come out. They blow out the Packers, who just were not interested in being there. And we got to see a little Jordan Love. So your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think Jameis Winston really showed a lot of promise for what you want to see out of him. He was willing to throw balls away instead of forcing them downfield into tight windows. He was making the open throws. He was taking advantage, making good reads. I don't know if it's the fixed vision or if it's just, Sean Payton, probably Payton more so than the LASIK eye surgery. But, it's a great start. I think Winston still has some ways to go. He still needs to really show more as a passer and really kind of put the team on his back when needed. But I think this is a great start for the Saints. And I think there's a very realistic chance we're talking about them as a playoff team. And, don't sleep on the fact that they won the NFC South last year. A lot of people will kind of attribute that to the Bucs just because they won the Super Bowl, but the Saints were the top team. And Drew Brees, he's a legend. Don't get me wrong, but last year he had some moments where he was holding them back because the offense couldn't open up and get downfield, and Winston's able to. Now, is Winston going to offer the same awareness, short throw accuracy that Drew Brees does? No, but I think the ability to open up this offense, the ability to hopefully get Michael Thomas back and healthy is going to be huge for the Saints. We could see some chaos there in the South if the Saints are full strength.
Absolutely. All right. I only want to touch on, two more games here because I want to look ahead here. But Kyler Murray, he's making me look great with my MVP pick. 4 touchdowns throwing, 1 rushing. Guy's incredible. And that's a huge statement win for my pick to win the NFC West, the Cardinals, who go to Tennessee, put up 38 points against the vaunted Tennessee Titans defense we've been hearing about for so long. Titans did not look good, Michael, but I just think the Cardinals are a better team. NFC West is going to be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like the Cardinals were the odd team out for this NFC West, and maybe they still will be, but that's a great first week for them, and I'm very impressed with them. You know, the defense looked phenomenal. Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins both put up some very strong weeks that could have easily had Zaven Collins on this Rochman's Rookies of the Week list, but, you know, there's just a lot of strong competition. But Cardinals look good. We'll see what happens with the secondary. I still have some question marks about their cornerback unit, but great start so far. Kyler Murray looks like a video game out there on rookie mode with some of the throws he was making. Really excited to see what happens for them. And yeah, like you said, this NFC West is absolutely stacked. You could make the argument that all 4 teams are deserving playoff teams, but, you know, most likely only 2, maybe 3 are going to be able to get in.
Yeah, and the AFC West looking good too. Raiders get a huge win. The Chiefs win. The Browns blew it. I mean, I don't know what else to say. They should have won that game. And I honestly think they're the better team. But the Chiefs, Mahomes never lost in April. So kudos for them for the comeback. But I think if they play each other again in the playoffs, I think it's going to be a different result.
Yeah, it's crazy that the West is completely undefeated right now. Some great teams in both conferences, some great wins for a lot of these teams. You know, Raiders going and beating the Ravens. The Chiefs coming back and beating the Browns. Just great opportunity for everyone. Arizona beating Tennessee, like we talked about. Very strong start for everyone.
AFC West, they're a combined 4-0 on the season.
Yeah,
and the same thing in the NFC West.
AFC West, both 4-0.
8-0. 8-0.
It's just wild. So West Coast, Best Coast, apparently, and we'll see what happens. But going to be very exciting to watch both conferences, both divisions. I mean,
absolutely. All right, let's look at this week here. Big game Sunday. Two first place teams that nobody really thought we were going to win. You got the Raiders and Steelers right away. It's going to be a big one for John Gruden's team. The Steelers will be favored in this one. Your thoughts on, and kind of talk about the Steelers from last week, and they really should have to beat Buffalo, or maybe this is like, well, I saw them go 8-0, 10-0 last year, and then they collapsed. Are the Steelers back? Are they legit?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because I didn't love the Steelers' offensive performance against Buffalo, but I don't think Las Vegas is going to provide that same situation defensively. So I think Najee Harris has to get going if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, because Big Ben isn't going to carry your offense anymore. This isn't 2010. This is now 2021. We need to see Najee Harris really kind of take the load off and really start to establish this run game for the Steelers. You kind of look around at what the Raiders can do. They had a great week against the Ravens defense, which is considered one of the better ones in the NFL. So can they really put up the points and match what the Steelers have hopes to do in terms of going against this Raiders defense? Personally, I lean Steelers, but it's a toss-up for me. I need to see the Steelers offense make those steps, or else they're going to have a lot of games where they let their defense down and they just cannot compete in these games.
Steelers, of course, beat the Bills. Bills are in like a huge, we better win this game or we're falling too far behind to win the East here, because the Dolphins, who you have gone to the Super Bowl, they win last week, and now the Bills have to go to Miami. Dolphins really need to, if they want to win this division, they got to put their foot down here and come out and beat the Bills. And if the Bills think they're winning the division, then they have to win this game. Otherwise, I think the Dolphins might potentially become the favorites.
Yeah, I picked the Dolphins to win the AFC East, and I think they're going to win this game. Uh, I I don't know. I think the Bills have some talent, but Josh Allen struggled a little bit against the Steelers. And I think with the Dolphins, obviously they're a different kind of defense, but they still have a very talented defense. And it's going to be a great opportunity for both sides. Both teams, I think, need this victory more than we're kind of giving the attention to outside of, you and me. But I think it's going to be an interesting game. It's only week 2, obviously, but I think both these teams need it for momentum's sake, and it's going to be one that you keep an eye on. Can Tua get against this Buffalo defense? Can Josh Allen get back on track against this Miami defense? Going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I lean Miami. I really like what they got right now.
All right, Patriots and Jets, the other AFC East game there. Interesting. I'm gonna be watching to see Wilson versus Mac Jones to see who kind of looks better there. Not really too impressed with either of these teams at week 1, but I mean, how do you not pick the Patriots here? When's the last time the Jets beat them?
Yeah. Sorry, had a little bit of lag there, but Patriots are the team that I'm going with in this one. I think they really have everything that you can kind of look for outside of the offense. The defense is going to have a great job, whereas the Jets have a little bit of issues in terms of slowing down the offensive side of the ball, lack of secondary, the injuries on the defensive line. So I'm going with the Patriots here, and I think it's going to be a very interesting situation. But yeah, I want to see what Wilson does against a very talented Patriots defense, and we'll see what happens. One game that I wanted to bring up real quick, the Titans versus Seahawks, Cowboys versus Chargers, Chiefs versus Ravens, all three huge games. We'll talk about Cowboys Chargers first. Two very talented offensive teams kind of looking to get going defensively a little bit. Washington was held to 16 points, which is a good start for the Chargers. Cowboys defense had some promising moments, but Bucks offense is a little bit too overpowered for anyone to truly slow down. This is a huge game for both sides. 1-0 Chargers, 0-1 Cowboys. One that could be quite telling to what teams are legitimate in the NFL. Who you got in this one?
Got to go with the Chargers. I mean, you got to take the better quarterback, which is Justin Herbert, although Dak played very well in week 1. If you're a Cowboys fan, executive, coach, you got to be concerned with the fact that I think Ezekiel Elliott's in decline here. He's not getting better. He's dipping down. You know what happens, Michael, when a all-pro running back hits 30? He's looking for a job. And if you look at Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, that's kind of what happens. Short lifespan there. I think Elliott needs to get it going for the Cowboys here. And listen, the game was very close last Thursday, but make no mistake about it, the Buccaneers made it close because they had some fumbles. Godwin could have went in for another touchdown. I like the Chargers here. I'm going to keep rolling with Justin Herbert at this point.
And in that next matchup, Titans-Seahawks. Seahawks looked dominant against the Colts. Titans struggled against the Cardinals. But both these teams are very good matchups. I think Derrick Henry could very easily get going again. Is this a game where you see the Titans bouncing back, or do you think they start out 0-2 and really start to worry about this season?
I know it's a tough one there. Just because of the fact that I don't believe in the Seahawks team, I really want to pick the Titans. But the Seahawks, I mean, they always start off phenomenal. And it's especially, when they're playing in Seattle. So I got to go with the Seahawks here. The 12th man is legit in Seattle. And the good news for the Titans is, unless the Texans start running away with things here, they're going to be starting the thick of things to win the division.
And that Sunday night football game, Chiefs versus Ravens. Ravens absolutely upset by the Raiders last week in what was an overtime finish. Chiefs come back against the Browns. Is this a game where Baltimore bounces back, or do you think that they are another team that could potentially be sitting 0-2 and wondering what's going on?
Listen, Baltimore is they're gonna play better. They had some injuries, they've got some new guys in there to kick things off, but the Chiefs are gonna win this game. They're the better team. Even if Lamar Jackson goes crazy here, which he can, I don't think the Ravens could stop Patrick Mahomes or Kelsey or Hill. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. It's going to be a tough spot for the Ravens, who we both thought would be a playoff team going into the season at 0-2.
Absolutely. And, I've just two more. So we're going to do Saints-Panthers here. Darnold obviously got his revenge against the Jets in a victory, but there were some issues as well. Saints completely blew the top off for their game against the Packers. Do you think Darnold can continue his success, or do you think that this is going to be a tough one for the Panthers?
No, I didn't like what I saw from Darnold, really. He has all these weapons. He played well enough to get the win, but the offense wasn't explosive. I'm gonna roll with the Saints here. I guess I'm jumping on the Jameis bandwagon for at least week 2.
I got you. And then the reason I'm saving this one for last, talking about regular season hard knocks team, Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that they're doing that. Yeah. I'm shocked the coaching staffs would allow that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting as well, especially on a team like that where, you have the looming option of, if Carson Wentz struggles, then you're just really opening up the room for chaos. So I thought I wanted to hear your thoughts as well. But, Colts, Rams. Colts desperately needing to get on track right now, 0-1 after losing to the Seahawks. Rams look phenomenal against the Bears. Matt Stafford looks like a stud. Do you think that the Colts can bounce back in this game, or do you think the Rams are going to continue to roll?
Yeah, I think the Colts, they'll be at home. They got to bounce back. I think Reich will have them prepared. Really last week, Wentz got his first real reps with his teammates. So I think he's back in the Reich system. I think he's going to work out. I think it'll be a close game. But I'll take the Colts here. I know they're home again. They were home last week, and the Seahawks routed them. But I'm just thinking here, there's no way the Colts could have a repeat performance of how poorly they played offensively last week. All right. But we got to talk about, these. You do your points, but we also got to talk about the first place Eagles hosting the 49ers.
Oh, yeah. I think 49ers take this one. I think the Eagles got to go against a Falcons team that, I said it last week. I thought they were overrated even for a team.
I was shocked, Michael. I was shocked. I thought the Falcons would at least put up 30 points.
Yeah, I thought Matt Ryan would get going a little bit, but I don't know. That Falcons team has some concerns. I knew the defensive issues were going to be something that came up, but I didn't think I thought Matt Ryan was going to regress over the course of the season. I didn't think he was going to start out struggling like this.
Falcons going to be taking a quarterback with the first pick in the draft next year, perhaps.
Yeah, I was going to say I thought maybe you're going to say taking a quarterback, and I was going to say they might take one number 1 because they might be there. I still expect Texans to be the number 1 pick team, but don't be surprised if Falcons are number 2.
Tyrod, he's got something to prove.
Tyrod looked good. I really love Tyrod, but man, it's the Jags won the first game last year and then lost 15 straight. So I'm trying not.
So what do you think? Jaguars going back to back with the first pick?
Possibly. Who knows? Trevor looked.
Trevor looked lost good, without ETN.
He looked like stranded out there sometimes. So
he needed his buddy Travis back there, who's out unfortunately for the season.
Yeah, I think Jaguars need to establish the run a little bit. Whether that's feeding James Robinson or Carlos Hyde.
Just an overall observation from the first 7 days of the season is that nobody's looking to establish the run anymore. Everyone's coming out. Maybe they'll do run first down to start the game. And it's like, we're going to pass the ball the next 40 times. And you saw this in the game last night. The only time they're going to run and they make it so obvious is the quarterback goes under the center. Every other play, they're automatically in the shotgun. So if you're under center, he's handing the ball off. So if you're a defensive coordinator, it makes your job very easy. You got to get back to some real football under center, a little play action in the shotgun every time. Sure, maybe they're going to run it occasionally, but then you're just giving it away. If you're under center, you're running the ball.
Yeah, and I think that's also an issue for these running backs is we saw Washington draft Antonio Gibson, who was this wide receiver running back in college, and then they aren't even using him as a pass catcher. Like, what are you doing if you're drafting these guys and you aren't even using them for the gifts? Like, we need to be better as organizations where we're drafting guys and trying to make them, the best weapon possible. Stop drafting gadget players if you're only going to have them run the ball. That's just it. I'm more angry on it because, like I said, I have Gibson in fantasy, but it's just ridiculous. I hate it so much.
All right, let's hope for your sake and my sake the Giants can get it going with Saquon Barkley. I'll leave it at
absolutely. That is all we have for you here on Destination Draft Day. We want to thank everyone who tuned in and thank everyone, just for always being here. Thank LandryFootball.com for the platform to speak on. We will see you guys on Monday for real this time for Rochman's Rookies of the Week.
Unless Chris Landry is live again like he was this week, then we will not be able to bump him off.
Yeah, then we may get shoved over. But look, we look forward to it, and we'll see you